And to complete the most significant news for this day, Y News continues. Here are the top stories. The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, will increase the penalty for illegal parking beginning January 2019. The new penalty matrix raises the penalty from the previous 200 to 1,000 pesos for attended illegally parked vehicles or those with the drivers on board. For unattended illegally parked vehicles, the penalty has been raised from the previous 500 to 2,000 pesos. Penalties for violating the yellow lane policy and obstruction of traffic have also been increased to 1,000 pesos. MMDA says the penalty adjustment is aimed at instilling discipline among motorists and stopping illegal parking, which is among the major causes of traffic congestion in Metro Manila. The new penalty matrix is supposed to be implemented today, but the agency deferred it to January 7, 2019.
Inayos pa namin yung system namin sa collections. Number 2 sa ticketing. And of course, number 3, sabi nga ni Chairman, Christmas season ngayon, no? Medyo gipit din sa pera yung mga tao. Sige, pagpaliban na muna natin to.
Meanwhile, Budget Secretary Benjamin Diokno is hoping for a friendlier Congress next year as the government sets to operate on a reenacted budget in the first quarter of 2019. This is following the current Congress's failure to pass a proposed 3.757 trillion peso budget due to allegations of pork barrel insertions. Diokno says the Congress will have members after the May 2019 midterm elections who are expected to work harder on passing the next budget proposal.
I'm hopeful na hindi na siya mangyayari kasi there's going to be a new Congress. Di ba? May election tayo eh. So the midterm, there will be a new Congress. Hopefully much more, much friendlier than this one. Friendly naman tong Congress na to.
Diokno has earlier warned of reduced government services and fundings as it is set to work on a reenacted budget in the first few months of 2019. In other news, the Philippine National Police is closely watching merry-marking activities this holiday season for the possible proliferation of party drugs, especially in crowded places. Police are particularly monitoring usual party venues such as bars and clubs where party drugs are commonly traded. Authorities also advise the public not to readily accept offers of drink and food items from strangers.
Yan ay pwede nilang patakan ng liquid ecstasy or other party drugs na hindi mo alam kung ano na ang ginagawa mo. Pwede kang ma-rape or pwede kang malagay sa peligro.
Aside from party drugs, police also warns against the use of marijuana vapes as these are listed among the prohibited items under the Dangerous Drugs Act.
Ito po yung vials ng vape. So sometimes parang nasusuppress yung odor niya. But yung effect po ng marijuana, and when we tested this with the crime laboratory, it tested positive of cannabis or marijuana. So ito po ay bawal sa ating bansa.
Newly crowned Miss Universe 2018 Catriona Gray is back in the Philippines 2 days after winning the title. Catriona arrived at around 3:30 p.m. via private plane at Platinum Skies Aviation in Pasay City. The 24-year-old beauty queen was welcomed by some of the kids she has helped through the Tondo-based non-government organization as she walked towards the VIP lounge where she gave a brief message to the members of the media.
So happy to be home, so happy to be back in the Philippines. So thank you so much for all being here, for making my first trip home such a memorable one.
Catriona is expected to pay a courtesy call to President Rodrigo Duterte, but no date has yet been set, according to Malacañang. According to her camp, Catriona is only in Manila for a brief visit as her homecoming event this month, which will be highlighted by a traditional parade, is still in the works. Catriona will spend the holidays with her loved ones before she travels to the Miss Universe organization headquarters in New York, USA in January 2019 to formally start her duties. Meanwhile, prices of some holiday products have increased based on the monitoring of the Department of Trade and Industry or DTI. These include mayonnaise, ham and tomato sauce, but the other prices of other goods such as pasta, some brands of ham, fruit cocktail, and cheese have remained stable. DTI says many holiday items are still within the suggested retail price, although they are 3 to 6 pesos higher than last year.
Yung mga nagtataas ng presyo, it's their lookout, it's the manufacturer's lookout kasi market share nila yung nababawasan.
The DTI assures there will be enough supply of holiday products and advise consumers to take advantage of grocery bundles and promo items to save money. Senate Committee on Agriculture and Food Chairperson Cynthia Villamor assures that the supply of cheaper rice will still be available in local markets even with the implementation of the rice tariffication bill. Villamor gave the assurance after Agriculture Secretary Manny Piñol raised concerns over the possible removal of NFA rice in local markets once the proposed measure is enacted into law. Villamor, the primary author of the bill, says the proposal only seeks to remove the National Food Authority's regulatory power and to limit its functions to buffer stocking. Also, the agency will no longer import rice and will only buy the local farmers' yield. A fixed 10 billion peso fund will also be provided for farmers' subsidies, which can be used to help lower production costs while increasing farmers' yield. The Congress has ratified the proposed Rice Tariffication Act last November and is just awaiting the signature of President Rodrigo Duterte.
Ang NFA po, ang budget nila the same. But they are instructed to buy from the local farmers, not to import. Kasi minsan yung ating Secretary of Agriculture, hindi ko maintindihan, malinaw po ang batas na pareho pa rin ang budget ng NFA, pero pinagbawalan na silang mag-import. Gusto ng gobyerno, bibili na lang sila sa local farmer.
And for the news abroad, U.S. President Donald Trump bans high-powered gun attachments called bump stocks that were used in a mass shooting in Las Vegas in 2017. Here's why from Beverly Saison.
The Trump administration on Tuesday banned the high-powered gun attachments of the type used in last year's Las Vegas shooting massacre of 58 people. Trump shared the announcement during a meeting with the School Safety Committee created following a deadly shooting last February at a Florida high school.
This morning, we also completed the process to issue a new regulation banning bump stocks.
Trump's Republican Party typically supports gun ownership, and its members have fiercely fought off perceived threats to the U.S. Constitution's Second Amendment, guaranteeing Americans the right to bear arms. His administration, though, is sidestepping any potential debate in Congress in issuing a final rule on Tuesday that adds bump stocks to a definition of machine guns written 80 years ago during the heyday of gangsters' use of Tommy guns.
The final rule that was signed today, the Department of Justice clarified that bump stock type devices are machine guns and are prohibited by federal law. And anyone possessing these bump stock devices have about 90 days to either destroy them or turn them into an ATF field office before this rule becomes final and is enforced.
The attachments use a gun's recoil to bump its trigger, enabling a semi-automatic weapon to fire hundreds of rounds per minute, which can transform the firearm into a machine gun. While bump stocks are not widespread, they are still plentiful in the market, with high sales over the internet and in big box stores, officials said. Beverly Saison, UNTV News and Rescue, USA.
The 28 nation members of the European Union have agreed to a deal to reduce greenhouse emissions from cars in the next 10 years. But according to the European Automobile Manufacturers Association, the deal is too ambitious and unrealistic. Jovic Burmas tells us why.
The European Union agreed on Monday to a goal of cutting carbon emissions from cars by 37.5% in the next decade, finally settling differences between vehicle manufacturing countries and eco-conscious lawmakers. Austria's Sustainability Minister Elisabeth Kostinger said on Tuesday the result of the 9-hour-long talks between the three EU institutions on the issue was very positive, adding that emissions from vans would be cut by 31% by 2030. The 28-nation bloc has been divided for months over how strict to be on CO2 emissions from vehicles as part of its push to reduce greenhouse gases overall by 40% by 2030. Eric Jonert, the Secretary General of the European Automobile Manufacturers Association, said the targets were too ambitious and not realistic, adding that they might ultimately force car makers to lay off staff.
On top, it will have major implications on jobs, because the higher targets mean we have to move much faster towards electrification in the near future, which will inevitably mean we have to reorganize our production units, our plants, which will have an impact on jobs, because you need, in principle, less people to produce electric vehicles than fuel combustion cars.
But Brussels-based green lobbying group Transport and Environment expressed disappointment over the deal, saying the car industry had managed to weaken it. Its Clean Vehicles Director Greg Archer, however, said it was a fair compromise.
We would have liked to have seen stronger real-world checks, but overall the emissions reduction should ensure that around a third of the cars are electric or by 2030.
Archer said he expected a separate negotiation between member states to be held on Thursday, December 20, on the extent to which truck emissions should be cut to be a big row. Jovic Bermas, UNTV News and Rescue, Europe.
Unions of French security forces threaten to launch strikes over working conditions after weeks of violent protests by the Yellow Vest movement. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump's namesake charitable foundation has agreed to dissolve following a lawsuit by New York's Attorney General. Eileen Cerudo tells us why.
In France, Interior Minister Christophe Castaner vows to find a solution to pay off the millions of hours of overtime accumulated by the country's security forces as unions threaten to strike and protest over working conditions. The grunt comes after several weeks of sometimes violent protests by the Yellow Vest demonstrators, which called for an intense mobilization of the country's security forces. Unions have asked for more recognition from the government, better working conditions, and the payment of, according to them, over 20 million hours of overtime. The Yellow Vest movement, which began as a protest against fuel taxes and then grew into an anti-Marcon alliance, appears to have calmed since the president announced a series of measures to help the working poor. In USA, President Donald Trump's namesake charitable foundation has agreed to dissolve under court supervision, following a lawsuit by New York's Attorney General, claiming Trump misused the foundation to advance his 2016 presidential campaign and his businesses. New York Attorney General Barbara Underwood, a Democrat, said the Donald J. Trump Foundation's assets will be distributed to charities vetted by her office. The deal is subject to approval by a New York state judge. The White House and a lawyer for the foundation could not immediately be reached for comment. Trump, a Republican, has previously said on Twitter that Underwood's lawsuit was a concoction by sleazy New York Democrats. Meanwhile, Penny Marshall, who played an endearingly graceless character with a thick Bronx accent in U.S. television's Laverne and Shirley, has died at 75. Marshall died of complications of diabetes on Monday at her home in Hollywood Hills, California, her publicist Michelle Bega said in a phone interview. Among the people paying tribute to Marshall were her ex-husband, actor and director Rob Reiner. Marshall's first film was the underwhelming 1986 Whoopi Goldberg comedy Jumping Jack Flash, but that was followed by the charming 1988 hit Big, starring fellow former TV sitcom star Tom Hanks. Eileen Cerudo, UNTV, News and Rescue.
A SoftBank Group alumni reveals its robot creation that is said to be programmed to draw out the ability to love in a person. Mon Hokson tells us why.
Japanese startup GrooveX, founded by an alumni of SoftBank Group Corp's robotics unit, unveiled its first creation on Tuesday, a companion robot designed to make users happy. The Lovot, A mashup of love and robot cannot help with the housework, but it will draw out your ability to love.
Apart from assisting someone, improving productivity financially, we have a tendency to care about each other's feelings.
Using artificial intelligence to learn and interact with its surroundings, the wheeled machine resembles a penguin with cartoonish human eyes, comes with a range of outfits, and communicates in squeaks. It is designed to mimic affection for users who show it kindness by becoming warm to the touch, going to sleep when it's cuddled, or following users around. Its practical uses are limited to simple tasks like baby monitoring or watching over the house via a camera that users can access through a mobile app while they are out.
What could be the next first industry in Japan, following the car manufacturers? In the sense, Lovot can be a good field, as it has all the different industries elements.
SoftBank has shifted its focus to more practical robots following the limited success of its humanoid pepper machine, which can be found greeting customers in shops and restaurants across the country, but has been a flop with households 3 years after its launch. As with Pepper, Lovot's uptake is likely to be hampered by its hefty price tag of 349,000 yen or more than 160,000 pesos before tax, with ongoing subscription fees. Units will start shipping in late 2019. Mon Hokson, UNTV News and Rescue.
It has only been 2 days since Catriona Gray was crowned as 2018 Miss Universe, and Filipinos still can't get over her victory. But while Filipinos celebrate the Philippines' fourth Miss Universe crown, some Australians and netizens are divided over Gray's nationality. Kath Dumaraos tells us why.
An Australian paper released Tuesday, December 18, as part of their banner story, congratulating crowned Miss Universe Catriona Gray, but not as Miss Philippines as she represented, but of Queensland, crossing out the word Philippines and claiming as their own representative Catriona as their crowning glory. The Courier Mail wrote that Catriona is an Australian, even when she is the official representative of the Philippines, and ran on several occasions, including Miss World as Filipina. Catriona was born in Australia of a Scottish-Australian father and a Filipina mother. She attended school in Queensland until she was 18, then moved to the Philippines to pursue her modeling career. She speaks fluent English without the Australian accent, as well as the Filipino language. Another Australian paper, the Daily Tribune, bannered this headline, "Our Miss Universe," both pictures of Catriona clearly showing her wearing the Philippine sash. Hit, a radio station in Australia, was less assuming with the lead. An Aussie girl has taken out the title of Miss Universe for 2018, but it wasn't our chosen Miss Australia. Australia, the country, had an official candidate, Miss Australia Francesca Hung, born of a Chinese-Australian father and an Irish-Australian mother. Miss Australia only made it to the top 20 of the elimination round. Catriona lost on a previous run for Miss World, having no similar claim from the Aussies. And just this year, she won in the Binibining Pilipinas 2018, making her the official bet of the Philippines to run in the Miss Universe pageant. While these headlines from Australia sparked controversy among netizens, from Australians, Filipinos, and other nationalities. Crowned Miss Universe Catriona Gray arrived today in the Philippines and settled disputes on who she is and where she calls home.
Thank you so much for all being here, for making my first trip home such a memorable one. Grabe po. It hasn't sunk in yet na that we won Miss Universe. Pero para sa'yo to, Pilipinas. I'm so happy to be home, so happy to be back in the Philippines, and to see all of you, and also to see my young Focus family.
Wow, I'm proud to be a Filipino. Well, definitely that I'm the only Filipina.
Kat Dumaraos, UNTV News and Rescue.
And those are the reasons behind the news, December 19, 2018. On behalf of Rheena, Villamor-Camara, I am William Thio. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Good evening.